Hello and welcome to our video about understanding the thyroid. My name is Dr. Nate Samuelson from Cornerstone Chiropractic and also Vallejo Health and Wellness Center. Now for many of you, you've been diagnosed with a thyroid condition and you're on medication and it keeps going up or down or all over the place and you haven't had the results that you've been looking for. Or for many others out there, you believe you have a thyroid condition, but your lab tests are normal and you do not understand why you're supposed to be normal, but yet you feel like garbage. Well, we're going to try to clarify many of those questions that people have today in regards to thyroid health. Now, let me preface this is that many professionals out there do not really have an understanding of what a thyroid is supposed to do or what proper thyroid health is. We're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. But first, let me tell you a bit more about myself and why I do what I do. So as I said, I'm a doctor, but I'm a doctor of chiropractic. And it's not that I adjust away a thyroid condition. What I do is I look at the body and the brain to identify what has caused the thyroid to malfunction, and then to trigger, or to identify that trigger, and then to treat that trigger. So that way we can resolve thyroid conditions. Now, I've been doing this for several years, and I found out that chiropractic alone just was not going to help certain patients. And so I sought out individuals who help people with chronic diseases such as thyroid conditions. And we now have created this, what's called a neurometabolic therapy. So we treat the brain and the body to treat these conditions. And so that has allowed us to have very good success in treating thyroid conditions where other practitioners, well, haven't had much success at all. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what the thyroid actually does, because it's going to give us a really good idea of what symptoms we need to be looking for when we're talking about a thyroid condition. Now, let me ask you this. Do you know what the thyroid does? Many people don't. Well, here's the simple answer to what the thyroid does. The thyroid is the only hormone to activate every single cell in your body. Is the only hormone to do that. What does it do? It causes your cell to ramp up its energy production. So it tells the factories of that cell to create more energy. This allows you to have more energy overall or to be able to heal, things like that. Now, because it affects every single cell in the body, you can have a whole wide range of symptoms. Okay? This could be from, thinning hair, this could be fatigue, this could be, cold in the hands and feet. This could be a whole host of issues. It could even be the inability to lose weight, for example. Now, let's say that you suffer from the inability to lose weight. You've got cold hands, cold feet, you've got fatigue all the time, no matter how much you sleep. And you think you have a thyroid condition because your friend has a thyroid condition. So you go to your medical doctor and say, hey, I think I have a thyroid condition. Doctor goes, you know what? Well, let's go ahead and run some tests. They run a test called TSH, most typically. It stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about what that is. So they run that test, and it's in normal range. Well, they're like, well, there's nothing wrong with you. The problem with this philosophy is that we're taking one test and applying it to the body, saying that there's nothing wrong. Think of your thyroid as a dam. Let's say like the Hoover Dam, okay? So a really big one. It has lots of water passing through it and lots of water behind it and lots of water coming out the other side. Now, if you're going to evaluate the health of a dam, would you just look at the water behind it? No, right? That doesn't make any sense. Because if you're going to evaluate the dam itself, you have to take a look at the dam, you have to look at the water going out, and the water behind it. Now, if you're looking at the water behind it, you need to know why there's all that water behind it. Was it because you wanted it there? Or was it because there was a whole lot of snow the year before, and so now you have more water behind that dam? This is the problem that we see when we look at just one or two lab tests to determine the health of an organ. It's not very good. The problem also is that many professionals look at the thyroid as the only influencer. And so thyroid to, let's say, the reduction of fat in your body is a one-way street. When actually, it's a two-way street. The thyroid interacts with every single cell in the body, but your body interacts with that thyroid. So it'll be a pretty big change if you actually start looking at the big picture instead of this teeny tiny little window. And this is the reason why many practitioners miss what's really wrong with your thyroid. Now, the other reason why they often miss a thyroid condition is the fact that they look at such a wide range for their lab tests. Now, I don't know if many of you are aware of how lab tests are determined. Lab tests are determined by taking the previous year's labs and taking the ends off. So now you have this wide range of what's considered normal. Unfortunately, I don't know many people who go into a lab to get their healthy lab or their healthy thyroid checked. It's not very good. So basically, what they're comparing you to is sick people, so sick thyroids, or people on medication. And that's not normal either. So what we've done is we actually take it even further off the ends to look at what's a healthy organ range. It's called a functional lab range. This allows us to catch things quicker, which allows me to get you better quicker. And I'm pretty sure that's what you're here looking for. So let's go ahead and explore what should be done if you're going to be looking at the thyroid and which lab tests should be done, because testing is very, very important. And I'll explain to you in a few minutes as to why it is so important. So I mentioned that when your medical doctor suspects a thyroid condition, you get something tested called TSH. So let's go ahead and explore exactly what that is. First, you have something in your brain called the hypothalamus. So think of your hypothalamus as a control tower at the airport, okay? Your hypothalamus tells your pituitary what to do. Your pituitary is what tells your thyroid to produce thyroid hormone. So this is where TSH comes from, that thyroid stimulating hormone, okay? From here, your thyroid is told to bring in iodine. So let's take a quick peek at this because this is very important. So these are the cells that line your thyroid. You have what are called receptors on the top of each one of these cells. This is where that TSH goes. It tells your thyroid to bring in iodine. And that's the same iodine that is in your table salt. But your body can't use that iodine just yet. It actually has to break it in two in order to use it. But here's the thing I want you really to remember. I want you to recall what breaks this apart. It's called TPO, or thyroid peroxidase. And these are one of the labs that you must run if you have a thyroid condition. So TPO. The lab test is a TPO antibody test. It's because your body can attack this TPO. We'll talk to you in a minute as why that's so important. So then, once those iodines are created, now we're allowed to create the T3 and T4, which are the active forms of thyroid hormone. Okay, so now we've got thyroid hormones coming out. One of them is T3 and one of them is T4. T3 just means it's got 3 iodines on it. T4 just means that it's got 4 iodines on it. The big difference between the two is that T4 cannot be used by your body yet until it's changed into T3. T4 is the largest majority of thyroid hormone that's created. So 93% of all thyroid hormone created by your thyroid is T4. The other 7% is T3. This T3 goes to every single cell in your body, so it just disperses. But before it can go anywhere, it has to ride these little boats, these little protein boats. So now they're boarding these boats, and this T4 goes to several locations, but 2 primary locations, your liver and your small intestine. Okay. The biggest one of the last 2 that I mentioned, the liver and the small intestine, is going to be the liver. The reason why is that 60% of that 93% is going down to your liver, where it is changed over into T3. Now, I know this is getting pretty heavy at this point, but it's really important to understand why we need to look at something more than TSH. Because if we just look at TSH and you have a thyroid problem, but your liver's not working right, it's really not the thyroid that's the problem. It's the liver, because we're not converting that 93% anymore. So your thyroid's going to think, oh, I need more. That's going to be a bad problem. That's going to look like hypothyroidism if your liver's not working. Or if your digestive system's not working, that's 10%. And that's going to elevate your TSH levels as well. So why would we not want to take a look at the liver and the small intestine if someone has a thyroid condition? It doesn't make any sense not to. But we also have to take a look at T3 and T4 to see how it's utilized in your body. If we don't, we miss the big picture. But here's the thing, is that we can't just stop with those tests. Because remember, I told you that the thyroid in the body is not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. Let's go ahead and explore the reason why that's so important. First, we look at this. Because if your body attacks this, your body attacks the thyroid. So now you have what's called an autoimmune condition. An autoimmune condition is called Hashimoto's in this case. And the vast majority, 80+% of all thyroid conditions are Hashimoto's. So if you have a hypothyroidism, you most likely have Hashimoto's disease. Well, how do you get Hashimoto's disease? Well, something triggered your body to attack itself. Because it's been attacking something for so long, it's lost the ability to distinguish between good and bad. And so now it sees everything as bad because it's been attacking everything for so long. So in order to find out what's causing this, we have to run what's called a CBC with differential. So a complete blood count. So this is where we're looking at your white blood counts. So we can see if you have a bacterial infection, a viral infection, a parasitic infection, a fungal infection, or if there's any type of infection that we may have missed with those tests. So we're looking for an infection. But here's the thing, is that there's more to it than just this. If your hypothalamus isn't working, then none of this is going to work either. So let's take a look at what triggers your hypothalamus, so that control tower. So one of them is called dopamine. Dopamine is created in your brain. The other is serotonin, and many of you have probably heard of serotonin before. Serotonin is that mood-elevating neurotransmitter. Many times, if you've got depression, you're getting a serotonin-based type of medication to elevate your mood. Serotonin and dopamine is what tells your hypothalamus what to do. But here's the kicker. Serotonin is created in your small intestine. So if your small intestine is not working correctly, then your hypothalamus isn't going to work, which means your pituitary is not going to work, which means your thyroid isn't going to work. So shouldn't we do a test to find out if those are working? Okay. Well, we also have to take a look at something else that affects this system. Now, this is starting to get complex, I understand. I'm going to show you which tests you need to run here at the end. You have something called the adrenal gland that sits in your body and responds to stress. Your adrenal glands release something called cortisol, and that's going to affect your pituitary. Okay. So if those adrenal glands are stressed, now that can come from work stress, emotional stress, or physical stress, such as an infection. And trust me, I see a ton of infections. So if those adrenal glands are stressed, that's going to stress that pituitary gland, and that pituitary gland isn't going to be telling that thyroid to produce properly. So if you only run TSH, you're going to think it's the thyroid that's a problem, and not know that it's actually the pituitary that's the problem. Here's another one that really stresses the adrenal glands, blood sugar. Yeah, that's right, blood sugar. Not insulin-resistant blood sugar, that will, but I'm talking about blood sugar that goes like this, up and down and up and down and all over the place. That means at times you've got low blood sugar, at other times you have high amounts of blood sugar. This needs to be addressed. But how do you know if all you run is a TSH test? You have to run a test to look at blood sugar and not just glucose. You have to look at what's called hemoglobin A1C. That gives me a 3-month picture of what your blood sugar levels look like. That's pretty important. So write down blood sugar right there. That one is huge. That and infections. Okay, so now we're looking at many different organ systems. We've looked at the adrenal gland, the liver, the small intestine. So that means we have to know how well you're digesting food. And then we're looking at certain brain neurotransmitters. Okay, so now we've looked at blood labs that we're going to have to run. So we're going to have to look at the liver, the adrenal glands, small intestines, stomach. We're going to be looking at pituitary function and thyroid function. And then we're going to be doing a complete white blood count with differential to find out if you have any type of infection. I also always look for anemias. If you have an anemia, you cannot get better unless it's addressed. For those of you who don't know what that is, it means you're not getting enough oxygen to your body. So essentially, you're starving yourself of oxygen. Okay? Now, the last thing that I do to evaluate someone's thyroid is I look at their brain. Well, that doesn't seem like the smart thing to do, does it? Well, the hypothalamus and the pituitary lie inside your brain. And they have direct connections to what's called your cerebellum. Your cerebellum is at the base part of your brain here. I'm going to write that out for you. So cerebellum. This is the balance and coordination part of the brain. This feeds forward to both of those. If that cerebellum is not working appropriately, then you're going to have issues with your thyroid. You're going to have issues with more than just your thyroid. Your brain controls every single thing. So here's the other thing, is that your small intestine is intimately tied to your brain. So if you have a digestive issue, you are going to have a brain issue. You might not have a severe one yet, but you will get a brain issue. Whether that's memory issues, whether that's the inability to focus on reading, whatever it might be, you will develop a brain issue. What you have to do is you have to rehab that part of the brain, but we need to know which exact part of the brain needs rehabilitation. Because if this isn't working, this won't work either. That small intestine won't work either. It's because there's a connection called the enteric nervous system. Those two are intimately tied together, and if they're not functioning, you're not going to be functioning. So this is the reason why we get success here at Cornerstone and Vallejo Health and Wellness Center, is because we look at the brain and we look at the body. We evaluate both in order to find out what's going on with your thyroid. Okay? So we run the lab tests and we do what's called a functional neurological exam to take a look at the brain. If we have to, we'll run a stool test to identify if you have any infections there, and we will do what is necessary to find out what's going on with your thyroid. Because the one thing that we are phenomenal at is getting to the root cause of what's going on with your health condition. And in this case, your thyroid. We will find out what is driving it. Once we find out what's driving it, we will be able to eradicate whatever that is, or change you in such a way so you can actually survive and now thrive with a well-functioning thyroid. Now, this may seem like a daunting task to do, but we've done this many, many times. So I'd like to extend to you the offer to come in and try us out. Call one of our 2 offices, Cornerstone in Apple Valley or Vallejo Health and Wellness Center in Eden Prairie, and call us and partake in an exam. Our exams are 1 hour long, where we're going to go over your history as well as do a full neurological exam and take a look at the organ systems of the body. And we're going to see if we can help you. After that exam, we're going to meet with you for 45 minutes to discuss your case. Now that's going to be on a different day because we want to take time to put together how we can help you, or if we can. So that way you can understand what's going on, what it's going to take to get you better, and then how much it's going to cost you. So I highly recommend that you at least get some answers in your life and find out, can my thyroid be taken care of? And what is the rest of my life going to be looking like? So please take the time to call either Apple Valley at 952-431-5330 and ask for me there, so Dr. Nate Samuelson, or at Vallejo, which is 952-949-0676. And you're going to be looking for Dr. Rob Lindsay. We both have a lot of experience in this area, so we look forward to meeting you, and please feel free to ask all your questions when you come in and see us. So it was a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to meeting you in person. Have a great day.